watching The Buck Stops Here, and I'm Barkha Das. On the program today, we'll look at what the FDI fix means for Manmohan Singh's government. How far will he go to assert this particular policy being described as the first major reform by a government that's widely believed to be in drift with his own allies and many key Congress ministers and leaders privately opposing the move. But before that, the defining image of The Buck Stops Here this evening. After 6 months in prison, DMK Member of Parliament Kani Mori is out on bail. Like we said, she has spent 6 months in Tihar jail, being disappointed several times, with her mother actually flying back to Chennai today, believing that yet again her daughter would not get bail. The DMK has said that they are relieved to see her out. She will be officially out of prison tomorrow. She's still spending the night in jail today. Now, key protagonist in the 2G scam, A. Raja, remains among the key accused in the scam to not even have applied for bail. All right, let's get started now with what's going to be a big debate on The Buck Stops Here today. We're looking at the politics around the FDI war and what a war it is. The BJP has said that they're not going to allow Parliament to function till the government rolls back FDI. The government has said there is no question of this happening. We'll be debating today how far is the UPA government prepared to go, and is this a case of good economics but bad politics? Should FDI be treated as friend or foe when it comes to the retail sector? We've also got a very special panel and some big guests coming up on the program tonight. First up on the program, Rajan Mittal. He's of course the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Bharti Enterprises. Also joining us on the program to explain the BJP's position, Senior Leader of the party, Yashwant Sinha. Like every night, you can take part in our debate online. Our webpage, ndtv.com/buckstopshere, is now open for your comments. Like every night, you can tweet us as well. We'll run the best tweets through the length of this debate. My Twitter handle @VDup. All right, let's get started now with our top story this evening. Parliament was stalled, yet again. That in itself is not new, but the Manmohan Singh government finds itself in a peculiar corner. Isolated, facing opposition on its decision to bring in FDI, foreign direct investment, in the retail sector, not just from a united opposition, but from several key allies as well. How far is Manmohan Singh prepared to go to assert his decision? On the other hand, has the opposition ended up doing the UPA a favor without realizing it? Because after all the other contentious issues, from black money to price rise to even the Lokpal, no one seems to be talking about them anymore. Rahul Srivastav has the story.
Will modern and pop stores, the Kirana shop, be eaten by the foreign direct investment in retail? The government says no, the opposition says yes. It's a clash that brought the parliament to a halt.
Please take your seat. Don't come into the well. Please resume your places. Nothing will go in record.
UPA's key allies Trinamool Congress and the DMK want a rollback, strongly criticizing the UPA for broaching no discussion.
If ultimately all-party meeting is to convene, then why not before?
The opposition's threat is that there will be no work till the matter is resolved.
And I think there is a broad sense in this country and in the House which is against this, and I'm sure this should reflect on the government, and the government should seriously reconsider this move.
Even as the Commerce Minister Anand Sharma in delayed damage control shot off this SOS call to all chief ministers and opposition leaders, appealing to them to support FDI for larger public good. For the government, it's a policy it has debated and discussed. It's an executive decision that did not need a legislative nod, so it went ahead anyway. But even within the Congress, there are doubts. Senior Congress ministers Vaila Ravi and KV Thomas raised objections in the cabinet meeting that cleared the decision.
What are the apprehensions? You can see, that it's running into millions of small traders. It won't affect them. My village, there are traders. It won't affect them, I know. But the campaign goes to make a fear complex among these poor people. We don't want such kind of a political fear complex.
But sources in the government say it has no plan to let the FDI policy fall by the wayside. They want a straight rollback.
The opposition cannot will how the government will do its job.
The allies are protesting, the ministers are jittery, yet the government is not blinking.
perhaps even seeing a silver lining in the dark clouds. When the winter session of Parliament had begun, the government was facing attacks on the price rise issue, the black money issue, faltering reform process, and even policy paralysis. But now, a government move, perhaps a reform measure, is in focus. The political discourse in Parliament has changed. With Sandeep Fukan in Delhi, Rahul Srivastava for NDTV.
So are India's politicians, well, at least the opposition and some key allies of the UPA, being overly paranoid about FDI in the retail sector? On the program today, we have two of the biggest players from industry. We are going to be playing out an interview with Rajan Mittal, who is, of course, the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Bharti Enterprises. Also on the program, we'll be hearing from Yashwant Sinha as the BJP puts the government on notice ahead of a crucial all-party meeting. Now, industry has been hailing the decision, describing it as the one key movement that Manmohan Singh has made as Prime Minister in a tenure that's otherwise been described as a government acutely in drift. We're going to start tonight by hearing from a key voice in industry, somebody who wants to bring Walmart to India, Rajan Mittal. Rajan, thank you so much for your time on the program today. Are you a bit concerned at what you're seeing in Parliament, the fierce resistance that could overturn perhaps what seemed to be a done deal?
You know, Barkha, all I can say is sitting outside and kind of observing what is happening. I can only humbly appeal to all the people to, have this conversation, look at the national interest. This is one of the most probably, bold move this government has taken. And it is really needed for this country for a long term. This is a long-term change. I have seen it personally a few years back on telecom. Same conversations were around, and we know the results of telecom that has brought both on economically and empowering people of this country. And my belief is that this decision, which is a calibrated approach, must be talked about. And I can speak enough on the pros of it, and the cons which are being discussed. I can also allay the fears that long term that you will see this will only be beneficial to this country. So a calibrated approach has been taken by the government. My submission is that while conversations must happen, we are in a democratic process, and also we have to understand the government is clearly saying we have done this, the states will have a final call on this, that they have already spoken about it. In any case, I have to go to the states to get licenses to open my stores. So I think it could be really a win-win position.
But talking about the states, let's assume that the Prime Minister sticks to his words, sticks to his guts, and FDI does go through in the retail sector. Even then, Rajan Mittal, you will find that as many as 11 states and 28 major cities may well end up saying no to FDI in retail. So what does that really mean, in a sense, for FDI across India?
There are states who are allowing even today. My one question, Barkha, you need to ask the other, probably stakeholders who will also speak on this is, can somebody tell me the difference between large corporate houses going into retailing versus when you open an FDI? Where is the difference? If we are saying that the smaller stores will get hurt, if that is really the, fear which is coming around, should the corporate houses, large corporate houses in this country who have been in retailing for the last few years would not have done the same? And we know the result. We know the result. There has been coexistence. The markets have grown. What will the FDI do? It will bring technology. It will bring processes. It will bring the desired capital. Not only that, it will bring practices for farmers. It will start putting a manufacturing base in this country for a supply chain internally and externally both. So somebody has to tell me the difference between these two when I'm raising and saying, what have the large corporate houses been able to do? Have they been able to do something which these guys will be able to do? So that answer is not coming through.
That's a very interesting point that you raise about the big Indian players who are already in the retail sector. We already have Spencer's, Big Bazaar, Reliance saying they want to get into retail. Are you suggesting that some of the resistance is actually coming from the Desi big boys?
No, I don't think so, because if you really see, the entire retail industry has welcomed this move, entire retail industry. That clearly itself shows that there is enough appetite and there's enough room for the organized retail, which is only 4 to 5%. And we have to see the countries around us. India is not playing in isolation. Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, China, Japan, everybody allows. Look at China model. They have allowed 20 years back. Look at Mexico, Brazil. They are all anywhere between 16 to 20% of the organized retail. The rest remains with the unorganized. That is the nature of this business. Small mom and pop stores in the colonies will play their role. The relationship that they have, they will keep on continue to enjoy that. The real estate, what it is, you cannot have stores in the middle of the heart of the city. People don't travel in India to do. So I think the coexistence will remain. And what is being talked, Barkha, that employment, this is probably going to be largest employer over a period of time. Where do you find 10 plus 2 or 10 pass guys going in the first job? It's around here. And look, and my only request is these people must look at what is existing. Why don't people look at what the stores are doing? Look at the employability we are creating. The farmers that we are talking to, we are buying directly from them in a state like Punjab. Why don't these guys go and talk to them and see for themselves, is it beneficial or not?
But can I ask you, Rajan, that Chambers of Commerce and business houses, including the one you represent, had of course welcomed this decision and seen it as a key policy initiative by a government that's otherwise described to be in a policy paralysis. If this decision were not to go through, what message do you think it would send out?
That is where the chambers have spoken. Both chambers have said that this is a landmark decision. They support it. And I think as we have started now seeing some decisions coming in, that is why we are appealing to all sides to have a rational discussion and a conversation and allow this decision to go ahead. It's a very calibrated approach, and it is for the beneficial of this nation. I would say that, if things don't work out, it does leave some kind of a question mark as to how decision making will take place in future. And today, we are talking about this government, as we see, governments will come, governments will make decisions, and these policy decisions should be in the national interest, and that is what is happening now.
Do you feel, looking at what's going on in Parliament, that the government played a hand of poor politics by introducing a policy that doesn't actually need the approval of Parliament while Parliament is in session?
Barkha, honestly, I can't comment on that as to the timing of it, but I think this decision has been long overdue.
Okay. Let me just ask you in the end, Rajan Mittal, briefly, there is also the whole cultural attachment, as it were, that people do feel to the kirana ki dukaan, to the mom and pop store, to the neighborhood store, where the neighborhood guy knows you by name and you've possibly known him for years and years. There is a dangerous homogenization to globalization, which is not always charming. You have spoken of the need to Indianize Walmart. How important is that?
Of course it will Indianize. You cannot have a model which is outside model, because India has a very distinctive model and it has to play along. And let me also say, mom and pop stores that are playing their role, they will keep on playing their role. In fact, they will enhance their productivity. I see, and I today run 15 cash and carry. Every cash and carry is about 30,000 members, which are mom and pop stores. Why doesn't somebody go and talk to them how we have enhanced their productivity, how the quality has been done, how the pricing that they're getting? Somebody needs to talk to them. And eventually, we have seen in every industry, when the private players, organized players have come in, they have only enhanced the other players who have been around. And lastly, let me also say, while mom and pop stores have to exist, you also have to talk about sons and daughters who probably don't want to sit on these stores anymore, and they won't probably move out. So I think both coexistence will happen, Barkha. Allow some time and this model to come around, and this is where I think the approach of the decision making, which is kind of calibrated and saying 53 cities, let's test it out for a while and see how does this pan out.
All right, Rajan Mittal, thanks for your time on the Buck Stops here this evening. Rajan Mittal there making a very, very strong pitch earlier to us on why he believes that there will be a very, very wrong message that will go out if, after having announced the decision, the government can't go through with it. Now, the opposition, the BJP, of course, has put the government on notice and pretty much declared that if FDI is not rolled back, Parliament will not function this entire session. Ironically, some of the other key issues, black money and price rise, are now off the table. To explain why the BJP has taken such a strong position, Yashwant Sinha joined us earlier as our newsmaker tonight.